Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Allie. I'm here today talking about rapid repairs. I originally started my business naming it AutoCompete, working on parts repairs for the auto mechanic industry and doing software. Since then, I have been pivoting, and so now I am doing text message scheduling for your everyday mechanic. So what's scheduling like today? It's handwritten, it's over the phone, and it's time consuming. I can guarantee almost every mechanic that you've been to is handwriting their schedules. During customer discovery, I found that about 80 to 90% of the mechanics that I spoke to were using handwritten schedules. It's over the phone. Customers call in, check for availability, then mechanics, if they miss the call, they have to call it back. It's a really back and forth process. And it's time consuming. One of the people that I spoke to said that they spend 80% of their day with customers. So, what's the customer service process now? Customer calls, they ask about availability. They say, I'm looking for an inspection, this is what I'd like done, and they say, okay, we can get you in at this time, pencil it into the schedule. Customer comes in, they drop off their keys. This takes about 5 minutes. They come in, they give the vehicle information, they talk about the issue that they're experiencing and what they need. Then the car goes for the inspection, they write up the ticket, and then they have to call the customer for approval. They have to price up parts and labor, call for approval, and then make sure that it fits within the schedule. Then they purchase the parts and do the work, and then you have to call them again for when it's ready to pick up the car. It's 3-4 calls before finally you get to pay and pick up. What's our process? Key drop, text for approval, key pickup. What do I mean by this? So, for the key drop, the customer ahead of time goes online, makes an appointment, and they schedule their first appointment for the inspection, oil change, engine codes, etc. They enter their vehicle information ahead of time so the mechanic doesn't have to do it, and then they receive a text reminder of their appointment. Then for the approval message, after pricing labor and parts, the mechanic sends customer recommendations on what they think the car needs done to their phone. They also save it to their customer history. They receive their mechanic's recommendation, the price, and the pickup time, and then it automatically orders the pre-selected parts. Key pickup. They get a text that their vehicle is ready. It gives confirmation of price and allows them to pay over the phone. Upon request, we can accommodate off-hours pickup. One of the customers that I spoke to does off-hours pickup, and they said that they were able to increase how much money they were making by significant amounts by allowing people to pick their cars up either in the morning or after close. And we can do that by sending a personal code to automated window boxes so they can lock their keys in that outside and then pick the car up whenever they need to. And then automated vehicle maintenance reminders. I often forget to change my oil on time, I'm sure everybody else does, but if you're able to get a text message from your mechanic reminding you when it's time to change your oil, when you need to fill up your tires, things like that, it might be helpful for the process. What's the benefit of automation? So, technicians' time is expensive. For the people that I surveyed, it's worth $80 to $120 an hour. 80 is on the cheaper side. It reduces the labor of non-essential activities. For your individual who is up at the front, they are pricing up parts, they are talking to vendors, they're talking to distributors. They have a lot of work on their hands already. They don't need to be hand penciling schedules to do that. Text message reminders in a study of patients reduced no-shows by up to 38%. Text message reminders have been found to be one of the best ways to remind customers to come to their appointments, to be there on time. No-shows are a big deal in the industry, and with technicians' time being so valuable, it can really cut into profits. And then you can reduce the purchase pain by utilizing prepay. If you can pay over the phone, when the customer comes in, they're not worried about the payment, they have already paid over the phone. If they have questions or concerns, they can talk about it with the mechanic and ultimately bring up the issues without feeling frustrated or having issues because of that large purchase. So the market side. The auto repair industry was worth $78 billion a year. That's how much money flows through it. It's extremely fragmented. 67% of the industry are single operator shops. What that means is if I'm a mechanic and I'm starting my own shop, I don't hire any employees. I do everything on my own. All of the books, all of the online, all of the software, all of the car work. I do it myself. I don't need to add scheduling on top of that. And ultimately, this scheduling foothold can move into new pain points. So software growth over time, eventually we can expand into POS systems, into parts ordering, things like that. It also works for accounting. A lot of the mechanics I spoke to have accountants that they hire, but have issues with them. They spend a lot of money on these accountants, but they're not getting their money's worth. They might be having issues with those accountants. More than one of the mechanics that I spoke to had significant enough issues with their accounting that they had to pay money back to the federal government because their accountant didn't do things properly. And then for payment plans, a lot of mechanic shops and dealerships make a lot of their money from credit cards, doing payment plans over time. That's also something that we can move into eventually. I'd love to hear back from you. Again, my name is Ali. This is my contact info. Thanks.
All right, questions?
Yeah, my dad runs an auto body repair shop. Do you think this technology would work for a body shop as well as a mechanic shop?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just the scheduling software, and so it's not actually related to the what's being fixed on the car, and so it would be applicable there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great presentation, Ali.
Thanks.
I think it definitely seems like a big problem that I've experienced. I put off my oil changes because I hate calling people and going through that process. It is surprising to me that there isn't a solution out there already. Have you found any kind of competitors for this idea?
Yeah, so a lot of the software that's being utilized is called Mitchell One. There's a few other ones, but that's really the biggest one. They do allow text message scheduling. It's a very unintuitive process. It's very rusty and old. Only one of the mechanics that I spoke to in the Iowa City area actually used them for scheduling software. And they did use the text message reminder, but they didn't really like it. They found it pretty difficult to use. They found it added a lot of extra steps and thought ultimately that it was more trouble than it was worth.
I don't really have a question. I'm just going to say this is a really good idea. I feel like you see this a little bit lately in healthcare and hair salons and you have to schedule, with a tax. So this is really cool. Yeah, just a great idea.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Did you get a price point of what a independent mechanic would be willing to pay?
I'm still working on price. This is a pretty new pivot. However, a lot of them are paying significant amounts for their software. On the lower end, $150 to $200 a month. On the higher end, anywhere from $500. Or for dealerships, they were paying up to $4,000 for their software because it's being put on multiple different computers throughout the dealership.
Have you worked with like Square, Stripe, or any of the a lot of the big POS systems on how this is going to work with the API integration?
I haven't yet. I haven't yet, but I plan on integrating that stuff, and that's ultimately why the payment plans would be further out, especially, or growing the software into other stuff would be further out. In terms of integration, I'm not quite at the step to be building the software just yet, but it's something I'm going to be looking into.
What has pivoting been like for you?
Yeah, so I originally started with building the company, calling it AutoCompete, and I was compiling together different vendors' parts into a single location and allowing mechanics to search through those parts all in one place so that they weren't going to a lot of different websites and stuff. Ultimately, I found that mechanics don't have as big of an issue with that as I thought that they did. A lot of them work with local vendors. A lot of them it's based specifically on when the part can get there, and so it just wasn't something that I was seeing a lot of future runway with. Yeah.
Why this idea? What gets you excited about working on this specific project?
Yeah, so I was a technical service manager at an auto repair shop in the area for two summers ago now, and I really enjoyed working on it. I also I know that there's not a lot of like trust and there's not a lot of trust in the repair industry, and it's a pretty antiquated system, and I ultimately found that that system was antiquated when I was working there, and I thought that this would be a good way to solve that.
That would be such a cool thing to add into your pitch flow, is like, what is your connection to it? What were your challenges? Well, maybe even like saying a really frustrated story that you had, like I had to do this and then this happened and blah, 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 because I don't know anything about this industry, but seeing your personal connection to it would help kind of position you expertly in the pitch, and then also let people know why you're so excited about solving this problem. So I think that is really cool to hear, and I would love to see that show up in your deck.
Yeah.
Stories are good.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a suggestion. When it comes time to do software, we use Acuity with ours. It's a good package. It does, you can do online scheduling, and it does text message reminders, and you can set it up for various things like that. But they also have an API. I haven't even explored it, but you know, when it comes time to start building your software, perhaps you could look into, you know, one of those kinds of scheduling packages that already does some of the things that you're talking about,
Right.
but that you could bolt on other specific pieces for this industry.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So to kind of piggyback off her question of like the hair industry, do you envision this going on to like the website? Because like when you go to a salon now, you can schedule with the actual stylist, and there's a text message that's very modern, I think, for the most part. But it's, you go to me, for me, I go to the Google, I choose the salon, and then there's a variety of ways. If I have a stylist in mind, I will know the person. If I don't, I can just select the, whatever it is I'm looking for, what's it called, cut, or the service. Is that kind of how you envision this going, like building the software so that it would be attached to their website?
Yeah, so the scheduling process is ultimately really two parts. The first part is going in, doing that initial inspection. The secondary part comes after getting approval to do the work that the mechanic is recommending. And so that original inspection is what they're ultimately scheduling online up front. And that inspection, you block off an hour for an inspection or an oil change or something like that. And then the mechanic would come back and say, this is when I am able to have it done by. Does that work for you? But yes.
I have an existential industry question based off that. Is there a potential for an evolution of a sort of couture mechanic industry situation? What I mean by that is, okay, so I know people who go to family-owned shops, right? I've always had good history there, but then they hired a person who is not a great employee. So I no longer can depend on their service. Whereas I go to a salon, I know who my specific stylist is.
Right.
Is there a way that maybe this could introduce the whole idea of hiring a specific mechanic within the shop?
Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but I think that's potentially a good idea.
Yeah, because you have ratings with salons. Like,
Right.
not even ratings, but like this is an expert level, this isn't, yeah, you have
Right,
tiers.
yeah.
So-
Same thing with masseuses. Yeah.
I wonder if you could do that with a mechanic, like this guy's actually really good at blah, 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 versus this guy's learning and he'll work on your.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you.
My customer pain point is I don't know jack anything about cars, and so they'll call me and be like, we need to do the blah blah blah, this thing, this oil, this. So is there like a way to like really have that more explained when you get the approval text, like actually understanding what they're asking you to do, why it's important, because it all sounds like gibberish to me.
Yeah, so ultimately I'm thinking that when the mechanic is sending that text back, there's going to be, based on the parts that they're putting in and what they are saying, what work needs to be done, there will be an automated or like generated response that'll say, this is likely what the recommendation is, and then the mechanic, here's why, and the mechanic can go in and add specific comments and say, this is what it was for your particular car.
That would be so helpful.
Yeah.
Or maybe have a learn more
Yes,
kind of.
Learn more.
like, if you don't do this today, your car will not drive, or like.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
do these like within 100,000 miles, and I'm like, I'm at 70,000 miles, why do I need to do this right now?
Right.
And sometimes it feels like,
Proton
it's just like trying to rope me into something I don't need, but like, if you're like, no, girl, if you don't do this, you're gonna be on the side of the road tomorrow, like, I need to know that level of detail.
Got it. Yeah.
Or for a learn more button.
I'm imagining like the name of the part and then like how many flames are next to it.
Right.
The little fire in the forest.
Level of importance, 1 flame, 2 flames.
Yeah.
Have you fleshed out your core values?
No, not yet. This pivot is pretty new. I started this pivot about a week and a half ago. Yeah, so.
So did your previous iteration have core values?
Not really, no. But yeah, it's still a work in progress.
I would, your core values could potentially not change based on your pivot. I would recommend doing those because it will help you to make decisions easier on who you want to work with. And if your core values aren't aligned, it's just not going to be a smooth sailing relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
I'm kind of curious, you were talking about being able to schedule out ahead of time. And this is, again, kind of like everyone else, I don't know a lot about like how mechanics actually do their work on their side. When people go in and they schedule, can you make a determination about how much time that appointment is going to make? Or do you find, especially from your own experience, that like you said, they go in and they tend to just say like, hey, we give everyone like a block of time, and then from that we have to put in additional time? Like how does the scheduling around that work?
Yeah, so like I said, it's in 2 parts. So the first part is the initial inspection. That inspection is pretty much always blocked off as an hour. You want to give your technician good enough time to be able to really get in there, understand the car, what's going on, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Then secondarily would come the part where the time is specific to each vehicle. And so you wouldn't know that before doing the inspection, but they would be able to tell you that once the inspection has been done in that approval text.
Okay. The reason I was asking is I was thinking like there's kind of 2 parts to this, and I was wondering if you thought about it, because you have to schedule out, of course, like how much time each appointment needs, but then on top of that is you also have the scheduling of your employees.
Right.
Right, and have you started looking into like what that part looks like? Are you going to try to manage that with your product, or are you thinking that that's just like a number that they would plug in from some other system to start with?
Yeah, so the scheduling of the employees is pretty much a mirror image of the scheduling of the customers. And most of the time, at least in my experience, it's a sort of thing of, here is the ticket, work on this until you're finished. When you're done, bring it back to me. I will give you your next ticket. Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I'll ask our traditional final question. What can we as a community do to help you?
Yeah, so ultimately I'm going to be moving into software development soon. And so I'm going to need help with that. And then just in general, yeah, if you feel like you've got a good opinion or a good voice, I would love to hear from you.
Excellent. All right. Let's give Allie another round.